Welcome to Mission Evolution Radio Show with Gwilda Wiyaka, bringing together today's leading experts to uncover ever-deepening spiritual truths and the latest scientific developments in support of the evolution of humankind. For more information on Mission Evolution Radio with Gwilda Wiyaka, visit www.missionevolution.org. And now, here's the host of Mission Evolution, Miss Gwilda Wiyaka.
Many view the body as only physical in nature, but is there more to it? What if one of the body's major functions is to ground us into physical reality? What if our bodies are a major gateway to evolution? Can structural imbalances impinge on this amazing and very necessary ability? Mission Evolution Radio TV show is coming to you on X-Zone Broadcast Network and Simul TV. We are produced by rel-mar Media Company with studios and corporate offices in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada. With us this hour to explore the body's major role in presence and evolution is Mary Bond. Mary is the author of Body Mandala, Posture, Perception, Presence. She trained directly with Dr. Ida Rolf, the originator of structural integration. Her 3 books based on Rolf's philosophy of gravity is a healing force for human transformation have been translated into 5 languages. Her website, healyourposture.com. Mary, thank you so much for joining us on Mission Evolution.
Gwilda, it's my big pleasure to meet with you and talk with you and your listeners.
So it's amazing to me. You studied with Ida Rolf. What drew you to study Rolfing in the first place?
Well, because I got Rolfed. You know, I had.
I'm so sorry to hear that.
Well, no, I had the experience. I was in a dance program at UCLA studying to get my degree in choreography. And my roommate, who I knew could not do a double pirouette, suddenly was doing them in the ballet class. And I was like, well, what happened to you? And so what happened was that she became better aligned through this body therapy, manual therapy called structural integration. So I thought, well, I got to get me some of that. And then Dr. Rolf came to town. She came to give a sort of demonstration, and she was talking about gravity. And I was so interested in how the body worked as a dancer. And actually, my ballet teacher had been talking about gravity. So I kind of perked up. And I asked her if I could study with her. And she started to say no. And I said, well, I don't really want to do the work. I just want to see the way you see bodies. So that's what happened.
Well, how long did you study with her?
Well, let's see, probably 5 years or so. You know, I kind of came in and out of it. I was dedicated, and yet I had other things going on in my life, like family and.
Yeah, as a dancer, yes, that's pretty all-encompassing. So, for those of us that don't know, what is Rolfing exactly?
Rolfing is a manual therapy developed by Dr. Rolf that has to do with reorganizing the body's structure, or some people say posture, but she was insistent that posture was a activity and structure was what you have underneath the activity. So it was about realigning the structure in accordance with the pull of gravity so that everything would work better, that the muscles and the bones would be more able to move freely, and that within the body also the functions would be working more correctly. Mm-hmm.
So how does Rolfing differ from massage, say, for instance?
Well, because it's targeted. When we're trained to look at the person's organization, the way they are, the way they move, the way they stand, and to address our manual contact according to what we see is out of alignment. And
so does, I know massage works, even deep tissue massage works mostly on the muscles. Does Rolfing work on the muscles as well, or where all does it work?
Well, actually, nowadays, I think massage therapists as well as Rolfers are talking about fascia. So we think of it all as myofascia. And the fascia is the connective tissue that surrounds all organs in the body, not just, it's like envelope around the muscles, but it's an envelope around every tube, every wire, every vessel, every organ in your body. And it's very interconnected. So Dr. Rolf's idea was that when you got your hands specifically targeting that tissue, you actually were always touching the whole body rather than targeting any one single part.
Well, that's interesting. So how does it get out? I mean, obviously you're treating something. How does the fascia get compromised?
Because of repetitive motion, for example, doing the same thing always over and over the same way. Typical example was holding your phone, so then over time you would get the fascia in this part of the body would become contracted and dehydrated, actually. Another example is injuries, some kind of impact or something that wounds the body, and then there's scar tissue. And so then what happens is the fascia becomes more densely connected, kind of like Velcro, again, dehydrated. So the work of the manual therapist is to not just stretch, but actually rehydrate that tissue so that it's more plastic.
And how do they do that? I
Well,
can see them with with an IV,
no, it's with slow, penetrating, but gentle, targeted touch.
So manipulating the area to bring circulation and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. So, what differences do you see in the original form that you studied and what's being practiced and called Rolfing today?
Well, there are at least, I think, 17, maybe 25 different schools of structural integration that have branched off from Ida Rolf's original guild. And many of those different approaches have added other kinds of techniques, mostly borrowing from osteopathy. So bringing in more information about the way the biomechanics of the bones, for example. So really looking more specifically at things that can torque and twist and compress through the skeletal system. That would be one way. Others are looking more energetically at the organization of the body. Some are also working with the movement within the body of the visceral tissue. So there's lots of different approaches that are being sort of woven into the Rolfing philosophy. But I think always all of us listened to her original message, which was that gravity is the therapist. So, yeah.
How do you explain that one for me? What do you mean by gravity is the therapist?
Well, gravity is the force that holds us to the planet and holds the planets to each other, right? And so when the body is out of alignment with gravity, then we tend to be twisted or bent or compressed or buckled and not open and free to move well. So when the body has been processed, Dr. Rolf called it processing, when the body has been freed of certain restrictions, habitual restrictions, then gravity can move through us as an energy that uplifts us and heals us continually, rather than being something that breaks us down.
So it's kind of like building with children's blocks. If you start pulling them out of alignment, pretty soon they crash.
Well, that's one way of thinking about it. That's a simplistic way of thinking about it. And actually, that was Dr. Rolf's preference. I think she was trying to communicate with the most possible people. So she used that stack of block imagery as her logo. But in fact,
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And so a stack of blocks is actually a compression. one thing is on top of another, pressing down. But more recently, we're looking at the model of tensegrity, which means tensional integrity, which is what's the word? A harmonizing between the compressive members of a structure and expansive or stretching members. So example of tensegrity structure would be Buckminster Fuller's geodesic dome. I don't know if people remember those, the way they were struts held together through wires, tension. And so this way of thinking about the body allows more spaciousness and more plasticity in our way of bringing it back into harmony.
Is it kind of like a suspension bridge?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
And this is all done by physical manual manipulation.
Well, yes and no, because always built into if you do it the way Dr. Rolf taught us, built into the manual, the physical manipulation of the therapist is what she called calling for movement. So she used to say, put the tissue where it belongs and then ask the person to move. So the person on the table is not just lying there passively, but they're engaged in their own process. And she also developed and taught us to train people to help themselves maintain the gains that they had gotten through the therapy through movement practices.
Oh, so we're about out of time in this segment. So
Okay.
You're saying that we have habitual movements, and you start to work beyond those habits because, again, once you're doing repetitive motion.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Pretty fascinating.
It is. That's the part that I love.
Yes, it's in action. Well, as a dancer, you wouldn't you?
Mm-hmm. That's what brought me to the work.
Well, it is time for that station break. Mary and I will return very shortly, so don't go away. This is Mission Evolution, www.missionevolution.org.
Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, join me, Rob McConnell, on the X Zone Radio Show, as together we will investigate the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology. Join me and my special guests from around the world each and every night as we investigate UFOs, ghosts, psychics, Bigfoot, conspiracies, and much, much more. Dare to believe and dare to be heard on the X Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, Monday through Friday at 11 p.m. on your hometown radio, Classic 1220, classic1220.ca. Are you ready for a tale that will leave you on the edge of your seat? Get ready to dive into the gripping memoir by Bart Sibrel titled Moon Man. Bart Sibrel takes you on a heart-pounding journey, unmasking the truth behind America's famous Apollo missions. Prepare yourself for hair-raising encounters with agents from the U.S. government's top-secret agencies. In Moon Man, Sibrel fearlessly reveals his real-life espionage adventures, shining a light on one of the CIA's best-kept secrets. Brace yourself for shocking revelations, including Sibrel's discovery of privately recorded audio exposing an Apollo astronaut's chilling plot, a plot orchestrated by the CIA. That's right. As Sibrel unveils this groundbreaking evidence, it becomes clear that there is much more to the Apollo missions than meets the eye. Could it be that we've been deceived all along? Moon Man is a gripping page-turner that challenges everything you thought you knew. It's a mind-bending journey into the unknown, where the line between truth and fiction becomes blurred. Don't miss this opportunity to uncover the secrets hidden for decades. Let your curiosity guide you as you join Bart Sibrel on his quest to find the truth. Moon Man, available now at Sibrel.com. That's Sibrel.com. Prepare to have your beliefs shaken to the very core.
What is body awareness? With us this hour discussing the importance of structural integration is Mary Bond. Mary, what is body awareness and why is it so important?
Well, everything we do through the body. You know, our lives are lived in our bodies, and our thoughts, our dreams, our imagination, voices we might hear, images we might see in our dreams, all these things are coming to us through our senses. So I think what has happened since the Western religions have sort of given us the belief that connection with the spirituality of our lives has to be transcendent, that has to be outside of the body. But in fact, I think we're starting to learn through certain kinds of research into trauma therapy, for example, that in fact, body and mind are completely integrated, and that what we experience within us is as connected to the universe as it always has been throughout history.
Fascinating. So, in other words, we don't have to leave the body to be present and functioning in this reality spiritually. Rather, it's
Exactly.
almost the opposite, isn't it?
I think so. I think the body is a gateway. It's not an obstacle.
So, what does fascia that we were just talking about earlier? What does that have to do with body awareness?
Oh, it's so fascinating. Fascia, years ago, when people did dissections to try to understand what's going on inside the body, they would throw this stuff in a bucket and just ignore it. It was just not important. But since actually Dr. Rolf, I think, put fascia on the map, at least in the most recent period of time. So there have been now many conferences and research studies where body workers, people like me, and academics who are studying fascia in the laboratories have gotten together and begun to compare notes. And lo and behold, fascia has free nerve endings in it. So this means that it can receive communication. So much of what we feel inside our bodies is communicated through the fascia.
Fascinating.
It is. It's amazing.
And they just throw it in a bucket, right?
A long time ago, yeah. No
So,
more.
no more. So the fascia really integrates the body in a way.
That's right. It's everywhere. It's down to the cellular level. So every cell in your body has a little tiny thin membrane of fascia around it. So, and that's interconnected all the way out to the fascia, which is like an envelope around your whole body, the skin, just under the skin.
So if you've damaged fascia in one area and it starts to become restricted, does it then restrict fascia throughout the body or in neighboring areas, or how does that work?
Yeah, actually, in Dr. Rolf's book, she has an illustration of a sweater where you have a sweater that has a pull on it, and that how that pull pulls through the whole sweater and distorts the shape of it. So it's a simplistic image, but it's exactly what happens. Is you could have. I remember having a client years ago who was complaining of a neck problem. She'd had an accident, and she had been told that if she didn't get neck surgery, she would end up, not being able to walk. And the class that I was teaching that she was in happened to be about the feet. And she stood up to have us look at her feet. And when I looked at her, I saw that there was absolutely no structural support under the side of her neck that was having the problem. So later on, I had the chance to work with her several times and to not only manipulate her feet and her legs and her spine, but also to teach her that she could bear her weight through that foot and thereby relieve the neck problem. So from head to toe.
So if we've been in an accident and we favor a limb, um, and as a body worker, I've seen this happen. You favor a limb, and then the injury's gone, but you still now are habitually favoring that limb. Does that indeed impact the entire body?
Yes. Yes. So we continue to have some kind of movement pattern that has maybe originated 30 years ago, but we don't remember, or we don't realize it, or we don't think it's important, right? Until something else happens, and then the body is no longer as adaptable as it could have been. So,
One of the things that our modern era is plagued by is automobile accidents. How does that impact the fascia? I mean, that we're always in either just a fender bender or some major accidents, and most everybody's experienced it. How does that impact this whole thing?
well, that's a blow to the body, So it's like you have a blow to the body, and the body tries to secure itself, tries to stay safe, and so the muscles contract, and then they stay contracted, and then the fascia says, "Oh, okay." I mean, I'm being silly, but it's like the fascia says, "Okay, you want to stay in that position? Okay, we'll just tighten up this part of your neck, and that's how you'll be." So it's protective, but it's not totally intelligent.
Well, we've heard, or I have certainly, of holding emotion in the body. Do you work with that, and how does that impact this fascia?
Well, emotional impact is just like a car, like a fender bender. Something comes at you, harsh words, or even a physical blow. That is like a wound, even though you might not see it. There might not be any blood, but something happens in the body, and something in you stops and says, I have to stabilize and protect myself from this. And so you build some kind of, not exactly, could be a wall, or it could be just a barrier to things coming in anymore from that direction,
And you can see that in people's posture sometimes.
Sure,
Yeah,
sure. It's like a
yeah,
wincing.
yeah, exactly. So we hear a lot
Starting to
about
see, starting to see how Dr. Rolf had a good idea, right?
exactly. And how long ago was this? So we hear a lot about being present and grounded. How do these concepts relate to Rolfing?
Well, let's take this example of some kind of emotional impact that has happened to somebody. And let's say the response has been to lift themselves up, to hold themselves up and hold themselves together. This is pretty common. I'm kind of doing it right now. You can kind of feel it. I've pulled up through the bottom of my pelvic floor, contracted my buttocks, contracted my diaphragm, and I'm holding myself up. Okay. So I'm not grounded, right? Instead of allowing the planet to support me, I'm trying to support myself. I'm doing all the work, right? So the therapy would be to invite the whole system to learn again how to trust the ground, which also has implications about how to trust other people, how to trust life itself, right? So grounding into the planet, I think, has a huge implications for someone's life. And to be able to settle and relax again and rest and feel like I have something underneath me. I have something at my back, and I'm okay. It's not a quick learning experience, but it's essential in order to be able to be free of that, whatever it was that caused you to grab yourself.
So that holding yourself in a posture like that um, is energy expensive as well, isn't it?
Oh, it's exhausting. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
And
exhausting.
I've also heard that you can actually take on a person's posture, examine how they're standing and stand like them. And pretty soon you're starting to feel the emotions they do. Have you worked with that at all?
Uh, that's uh, that's a phenomenon called mirror neurons. We have little cells in our brains that mirror the movements of other people. Um, and so, for example, if you're watching a a ballet, let's say, and what makes you enjoy what you're seeing, the movement and the beautiful costumes, all of that is because you're actually feeling that in your own body. If you've studied ballet, for example, then in that case, you would enjoy it even more because your mirror neurons would be educated, right? So, but we use this all the time in terms of talking to other people, being with other people, because we mirror what they are feeling, because what we feel is always expressed in movement, even though the movement might be very, very tiny.
So then if we take this forward,
Mhm.
if we have restrictions in the fascia that prevent us from taking on particular positions, we're limited in our ability to mirror.
I think so. Mhm. I think
And,
so.
and so interaction is impinged.
I would, yeah. And you see that with people who've experienced terrific trauma, that they pull back from social engagement. They have less capacity to be present with others.
And being present involves being balanced and in cooperation with rather than fighting gravity.
Being present for me is being able to be with, for example, you right here, right now, rather than worrying about what I'm going to do tomorrow or what I did yesterday, right? So I'm trying to give you a good example of being present. It's the feeling of being supported by gravity that I kind of described earlier, that you're here, you're okay, you trust what's going on, you feel safe. So therefore you feel adaptive to what's going on and responsive and creative and open. All of those things are available when you're present. If you're not present, if you're worrying or remembering, then you're not as available to what's going on right now.
And therein lies our power, yes?
Right. I think so.
Well, it's time again for us to take a station break. Mary and I will be right back to continue our discussion. So stay right there. This is Mission Evolution, www.missionevolution.org. Are you interested in evolving with the times and becoming all you can be? Don't you wish there was one place to find the latest information to help guide you through the process? I'm Gwilda Wiyaka, host of Mission Evolution Radio TV. Join me on my mission to find the latest evolutionary knowledge and tools. The guests on Mission Evolution are leading experts in a wide variety of divergent topics, including allopathic, holistic, and integrative medicine, epigenetics, enlightenment, quantum physics, meditative practices, environmental issues, spiritual evolution, trauma healing, and so much more. Mission Evolution Radio TV is aired worldwide through the X-Zone Broadcast Network, X-Zone TV Channel 32 on Simul TV. You can enjoy our archives of radio or TV shows with our compliments at www.missionevolution.org. Come see the amazing lineup of guests and topics. With more than 200 episodes to choose from, you're sure to find what you're looking for. Visit www.missionevolution.org. What is embodied presence? This is Mission Evolution, missionevolution.org. With us discussing Ida Rolf's work is Mary Bond. Her latest book is Body Mandala, Posture, Perception, Presence. So, Mary, that's the $64 question. What is embodied presence versus disembodied presence?
Well, let's see if I can say something about presence first. If you're not present, so we were just talking about this, that's when you stub your toe, right? When you're not present, you're not all there. You stub your toe, and part of that is that you're not in your body at that moment, right? Similarly, when you're not present, you're thinking about whatever, something, that's when you back up and bump your bumper into this other car, right? That's when that happens. Also, I think presence is, as we were saying earlier, the body is a gateway rather than an obstacle to whatever wisdom might come to us from the greater universe, right? And it's when we're present that we're able to open ourselves to receive that. So when we're in our body, then that comes through us as wholeness, as a whole response, rather than something that we have cognitively designed. You know, you can just be present with your mind, and it's, I think, much less compassionate, much less gentle, much less open. But when you have the body, there's something that allows you to connect with all bodies, with all, that we're all connected to one another as well as to the planet. So
So the body puts out an electromagnetic field. Is it through that electromagnetic field, if we're in the body to detect it, that we connect to others?
I suspect that's correct. You know, I don't think about things in those terms. I'm thinking more in terms of the more pedestrian idea of perception, you know. But I think that we are energy and that we're surrounded by energy. I read something recently that I quite like, but I can't remember where I read it. And if anybody listening knows where I read it, I would love to have you send me an email. What it was that everything is made up of light, heat, and gravity. It's like, that's like, yeah, I think that's true. So that's true of our interactions as well.
If we have had a lot of trauma, like people that have been in war-torn countries and this and that, and in addition to probably injuries, when do you start noticing that your life is not working anymore because you have all these restrictions? And do you think Rolfing can treat that?
Oh, I do. I think people are so traumatized. There's a wonderful program. I wish I could remember the name of it, but it's working with therapists in countries surrounding Ukraine to teach them how to intervene and help people who've been traumatized by the war there. And I think there have been many such programs over the years. They're always small because we are alternative health. You know, we're not medical mainstream. But I think that being able to be in communication, either physically or through words and whatever kind of therapy there can be, as immediately as possible, helps such people to overcome or at least manage the dire circumstances in which they've been thrown to.
When you say immediately, is that because the sooner you treat it, the less embedded it gets in the body?
I believe that's true. I don't know for sure. Yeah.
Pretty fascinating. So let's talk a little bit about surgery. What happens when you cut through the fascia in surgery? What happens?
Same thing as if you had a knife wound from a burglar. You know, it's still an injury. I mean, it's an injury in a positive sense, a positive injury that has saved your life. But all the same, there's going to be a network of increasingly dehydrated scar tissue that develops around that wound, and which would be extremely beneficial to have someone who knows what they're doing work with that tissue and soften it, relieve it, so that the scar tissue of the positive wound doesn't end up being a negative, have a negative impact on the system as a whole.
And Rolfing can do that.
Not just Rolfing, but other kinds of modalities as well that are focused on whole body healing.
Does it matter how long it's been? So, say, for instance, a person had surgery 20 years ago and now they're just hearing about this and they know that that hip has never moved the same since the surgery has healed. Can you go into it now and still have an impact with these therapies?
Yeah, absolutely. I not too long ago, I worked with a woman who'd had several um, um, cesarean surgeries, several cesarean births, and had a terrific scar across her abdomen that was pulling her down and in. And just relieving that scar, it took a long time, more than one session. And scar work is very slow, very gentle. It's not rough. You're not trying to suddenly make this all smoothed out. You have to be kind and gentle and patient with that tissue. But over time, that whole compression in her gut area softened and opened up, and she was able to stand much more upright and move much better through her legs. Yeah.
I understand scar tissue is fairly insidious. Does it kind of regrow and you have to get back in there and coax it to soften again? Is that why it takes more than one session?
It depends on what the scar is about, where it is and so on. So,
Okay.
but it's not, the scar doesn't just stay where it is, but it sort of sends out little feelers around it.
And so all those little feelers, do they become
Yeah,
restrictions
they're
as well?
restrictions. Yeah, it's all restrictions. Yeah. So you want things to be moving. And so when I'm saying moving, it's not like, a great big movement, but it's when you put your hands on a body, you can feel whether it feels solid or whether it feels like there's energy or blood or, gentle movement moving through it.
And the more impinged we are, the less movement and the less life, really.
Exactly.
Interesting. Let's talk a little bit about how this impacts our functioning in the world, not just our physical functioning, but our productivity, our creativity.
Well, as you said, it takes a lot of energy to hold something back, right? It takes a lot of energy to maintain a protective stance. So that means that you have that much of yourself devoted to maintaining the status quo, which I think probably distracts from your creative output, from your ability to come forward into the world with your whole beingness, with all the things that you're capable of. Yeah. So
Yeah, restrictions are restrictions, huh?
yeah, there you go.
You suggest that an awareness of space around the body influences how the body functions. Would you explain that, please?
Absolutely. So if you don't mind, I would give the readers or the listeners an example. So, for example, if you right now imagine that you're holding your phone, your device in your hand, and you're scrolling through it and you're looking for an urgent text from somebody, and just put yourself into that frame of mind and that sense in yourself. And notice, if you stay that way for just another few moments, how you're breathing, how the breathing feels, how your body feels, and how comfortable you are. And then let's just put the phone down for a moment and imagine if you stretch your hands way out to, touch the walls on either side of you. And imagine that you can see, let your awareness, your eyes, take in that space through your peripheral vision, not your focus. Your focus vision was looking at the phone. Now you're using more your peripheral vision to sense the space around you. Imagine the space behind you. You know what's there because you walked through it to get to where you are. So there's space behind you, space all around you, space above your head. Notice your breathing in that situation. Notice the way your body is, the way you're sitting. and your comfort. And then, because I can't stop giving a lesson, see if you can keep that openness and pick up the phone again and look at it, but don't lose the space. Keep the space.
There's a challenge, and we walk every day focused on the phone at this point.
Yes, and there's becoming more and more injuries and more posture problems and more breathing problems. Neck, it's like text neck people have. And when you have text neck, it's very hard to breathe through the nose. So people begin to open the mouth, and you have more and more people with slack jaw, just, like that. So that impacts the ability. Not only does it impact breathing, which is a problem, but it also impacts the ability for the head to rise up above the neck.
Also, doesn't it impact your feeling of safety in the world if you aren't aware of the world around you?
Absolutely. If our ancestors weren't aware of the space around their bodies, they would have been lunch. They wouldn't have been catching lunch. They would have been lunch.
And we end up being a spot on the pavement.
Yeah.
Well, it is again about time for us to take another commercial break. But while we're in this break, everybody give that a try. See how that lesson works for you. Please stay with us as Mary and I continue to explore the physical body as a major tool for spiritual evolution. This is Mission Evolution, www.missionevolution.org. Do you have a product or service you'd like to promote to a worldwide audience? Imagine your product featured on Mission Evolution Radio TV. If you're interested in showcasing your work, Mission Evolution is broadcast to the X-Zone TV Channel 32 Simul TV, on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, YouTube, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Audible, and many other audio and social media platforms. Our professional studios can produce and broadcast your custom high-quality ad. It will be permanently embedded in each episode and featured in the archives for years to come. Together, we can make it happen. Contact us at info@missionevolution.org for more details. Spaces are limited, so don't miss out on this great opportunity. Email info@missionevolution.org today. Are you a victim of dreaded body patterns? This is Mission Evolution, missionevolution.org. We're continuing our discussion with Mary Bond, the author of Body Mandala, Posture, Perception, Presence. Her website is healyourposture.com. So, Mary, I pose the question, what is body patterns?
Well, they're just habits, habits of the way you do things. So a habit would be that you put more weight on one leg than the other, but you don't realize it. So oftentimes one leg will actually be more muscular, stronger than the other side. Over time, that whole side of the body becomes more compressed. So you begin to have a curve towards the side of the shorter leg. And little by little, you get older and older, and you begin to have a limp. You don't know it because it's developed since you were like probably 8, So that's a pattern, and a pattern persists unless you've studied it. First of all, waked up to it, and then decided it's important to change it, and then go about some kind of process of balancing yourself so you have more equal weight on the two sides of your body.
How can we wake up to it? To body patterns?
Well, lots of times I think when we go to a therapist, whether it's a doctor or an alternative therapist, we just want the pain to go away. I think most people these days they think about body awareness is not all that important. The only thing they're mostly aware of is pain, Or number 2 is how they look, So those are the 2 motivations that people have when they come to a therapist, and the therapist is expected to fix that, right? If you're lucky, you'll run into a therapist who instead wants to educate you and help you understand how you got that way. So my advice is to look for that kind of person who can help you understand your patterns and help you find a way through them. Now, this could be a yoga teacher. It could be a Pilates teacher. It doesn't have to be a manual therapist. It just needs to be somebody who's willing to help you change the way you do things, rather than make you more comfortable or more attractive.
If you're very much right-handed and you do it, so you intend to do things one-sided,
Mm-hmm.
Are there some activities you can engage in that can start helping you correct that involve bilateral movement?
Oh, I think so. Yeah. I mean, I think that's, for example, a good reason to study yoga or dance, any kind of dance, or gymnastics, or, anything, swimming, whatever we do that engages the 2 sides of the body as equal partners. If the handedness has become a problem, then you'll notice it. You'll notice that you do certain postures or exercises more readily on one side than the other. Well, it's this more difficult side that is the side that you need to work on. And it's not what we want to do. We want to excel, so we are very happy to do the side that works great, do all those pirouettes to the right, but it's doing them to the left that's going to help you the most, change your brain, change the way you do things.
You mentioned how important movement is. Is intentionally working bilaterally, intentionally doing the equal amount with one side as with the other. How does that affect our overall functioning?
Well, it's not my expertise, but my suspicion is that it's improves functioning, improves probably the 2 sides of the brain working more in tandem. But again, it's not something that I necessarily have people do. So
What kind of movement you say in Rolfing that you engage the client to move when you're holding a position or pressing on some fascia? What's that look like? Explain that to us a little bit.
Movement might be breathing, might be just the breathing is a movement, right? So, for example, someone who breathes into the upper chest, this kind of person needs to learn to breathe into the lower ribs. So perhaps I would place my hands around the lower ribs and say, see if you can inflate your lungs into my hands. See if you can find that widening through the lower part of your rib cage. So that is a new movement, and it's a new sensation, and it's a new understanding of breathing. So that would happen perhaps on the table. And then when we sit up, can you bring that into the being upright in gravity? Can you still breathe through that lower part of the lungs, or do you have to breathe up here? Okay, so then you practice it doing walking or doing the dishes or whatever it is. So you have an opportunity to feel a different way of moving, and then to blend that way of moving into daily life as well as into whatever practice that you do, sports or somatic practice.
How important is bringing a person's attention to a different body part when you're doing this? Does that have any effect?
Oh, absolutely. If the person is not paying attention, then they're getting nothing out of the whole embodiment purpose of the process. So if the person is on the table chatting away about their latest knitting project, it's not going anywhere. It's what I call first aid, maybe, if you're lucky. But by being truly present in your body while somebody is doing the work, then there's an opportunity to feel yourself, to sense yourself differently. And it's that opening up of your awakening your awareness of your body that is, I think, the whole point of it.
Well, Mary, it's that time in the show when I get to ask you, what is your mission?
Okay. I think that people who truly respect their body's wisdom and understand their bodies, understand their patterns, I think those people are more likely to be receptive, to be compassionate to themselves, to other people, and to all of life. So that's my purpose, is to bring more people to that place of understanding and respect of the body.
Very beautiful. Very beautiful. If we are to start to engage and bring forward more structural integrity, what are the first changes we can expect to see?
It's so various. People are so different, so I don't think that I could say there's a blanket thing. But in general, I think people feel more, people could say something like, they might stand up from the table and say, "Oh, I've never felt my feet before. My God, I have feet." Right? Or, "My breathing is amazing. I didn't know that I had such capacity in my rib cage." Or, "Gosh, I went home and I was able to talk to my husband without fighting with him." So, all kinds of things can happen when you begin to intervene in the system in a holistic way that allows the person, the system, the body mind to let its own wisdom come forth. Okay.
So here's a good one for you. What is a body mandala?
Oh, I made it up. A mandala is an image used often in Hindu and Buddhist practices, but other religions as well. It's an image used to focus the mind for meditation. And it usually has a container around it with a central idea, which is whatever the central image is, has to do with self-realization or enlightenment. And there are usually gates on the four sides of the mandala. So those represent pathways into the center. So for myself, when I wrote this book, I thought, well, the purpose of this book is really body awareness. But there are many avenues towards that central self-realized embodied presence that I'm looking for. And one of them is posture. Posture is the most accessible to most people. Most people are aware of that. Movement, how you move, how you walk, what the rhythm of it is, how it's basically your movement. That's another access point. Third access point is what you feel, your senses, what you hear, and the impact of what you hear on your body. And the third one is your self-expression. So, for example, your self-expression in walking would be different when you're taking out the garbage than when you're going to see your best friend. You walk differently in those two ways. So beginning to feel those patterns through those gates is a way of working yourself towards that goal of more embodied, more open, more receptive presence.
That's a beautiful image, Mary. Unfortunately, we're out of time. Thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your wisdom.
It's my pleasure to be with you, Gwilda. Truly. Thank you so much.
You bet. Our guest this hour has been Mary Bond. Mary is a structural integration practitioner offering somatic movement coaching and the author of 3 books based on Rolf's philosophy of gravity as a healing force for human transformation. To find out more about Mary and all the wonderful things she has to offer, visit her website, healyourposture.com. This has been Mission Evolution with Gwilda Wiyaka. For more information or to enjoy past archived episodes, visit www.missionevolution.org. But most importantly, please be sure to join me right here next time. This mission will continue to bring information, resources, and support to our rapidly evolving world.